So welcome to this video for COMP3218, Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name's Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with...
Adrian Chapman, also a lecturer on the course.
And I'm Tom Blount, I also lecture on the course.
Brilliant, so we've got a couple of games to look at in today's video. Tom, did you want to just say a little bit about what we asked the students to do?
Absolutely. So for this coursework, we asked the students to make a small game prototype that had a strong core dynamic and a way of tutorialising that and the mechanics to the player.
Brilliant. Let's get on and have a look at our first game. Okay, so, yeah, Portal 2D. So I wonder what this is.
Okay, so tutorials, I guess. Let's go through the tutorials.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Let's start with tutorial 1.
Alright, so we've got the keys on the screen.
Yep, so A and D. Move us left and right. Got W for a jump. So that's very simply making sure that we can jump before we progress, which is nice. And then I guess we land on this blue platform and... Oh, would you look at that?
It's a portal. It's a portal. Who'd have thought?
Nice little level complete music there as well.
It's blue and orange as well. That's original. Okay. Here we go. So now you've got a little mouse with the left mouse highlighted. I like the little icon for that. It's nice. Yeah,
we've got like a little almost tutorial video, I guess, up here, sort of showing what will happen. So.
Yes. Okay. There you go.
So they've pre-placed one of the portals there and made us place the other one here, and then we can.
And now you have to figure out how to get up there.
There we go.
Good. Very good.
Now we have stars, so can't get through here.
Okay. So they're introducing... Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting. Small bug there. So when I came out of this portal, I was clipping into the...
Yeah, and you went through. Alright, that's a little bit of a shame, but I kind of... I appreciate the fact that they're introducing these ideas of you can shoot the gun through spaces you can't fit through.
Nope. Oh, hang on. Not quite.
There you go. That's interesting. So one of the things we haven't mentioned yet, which I think they did kind of show you before you get there, is that you can't shoot the portal at anything, right?
So only the white walls, not the grey walls.
Yeah. I'm not sure how obvious that was.
Yes.
So I'll be honest, I opened this earlier just to test it and make sure the recording was working, and yeah, it caught me out then when I was trying it out, and then I sort of realised that was what was going on.
I suppose that level is designed to show you that, right? Because you can't shoot a portal at the grey wall just to get across there. You know? So you have to kind of manipulate it. And it's kind of teaching you that idea that your momentum is conserved effectively. Ooh.
Where do I want to go now?
Nope. Jump off that top platform into it, presumably.
Oops.
Okay.
That was slightly tricky to do. There we go. All 3 stars.
That's good. So we're getting kind of increasingly complicated things. And we have a new control, Q. What does Q do?
So, I just picked up that green thing. So yeah, this bit doesn't necessarily show off this mechanic super well. So I know what it is because I was speaking to them during the development labs, and there's kind of a hint of it here in that.
I was going to say I can see a green splodge at the top.
So if I press.
So what I'd do if I was now is I'd press Q and see what happens.
Aha! So Q changes the mode of the gun. It doesn't just fire it, but there we go. So if I splat that there, and then I can bounce a portal around the corner, which is kind of a new and interesting mechanic to use.
But okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I suppose you're right that you're kind of seeing that in the top window. Yeah. Okay. Well, having kind of grumbled a bit about originality at the beginning, I think that's a nice twist.
Okay.
So this is kind of nice, right? They're building up the levels, they're building up the complexity.
Yeah. And I'm engaged in the levels as well.
Yeah, the design's reasonable, isn't it? Okay, nice. So what I like about this is they're not just using level design to introduce new mechanics. They're using level design to introduce new ways of using the existing mechanics. And in some ways that's more difficult, right? But they've done quite a nice job.
How do I get out of this bit?
Oh yeah.
I need something that will throw me up here, but I don't.
You need to. Yeah. How do you? I think. Can you shoot? No, you can't.
Hang on,
shoot
have I got?
Top. Can you?
Can you shoot in the black and white?
No, I don't think so. Oops. Oh no, I've
So
used up this.
You want your blue portal to be there, and you want to be in a position to drop down on the orange. What's going on in the middle?
Look at all this backseat driving.
This is just trying to demonstrate that if I put a portal here and a portal here, I'll do this.
Okay.
Which again, so these little sort of, I guess, hints, because they're almost totally removed from the actual level, really confused me at first. I didn't understand.
Yeah,
I thought this was a thing I had to interact with to complete the level, but no, it's just showing this principle.
So I think there's kind of like there's a principle, isn't there, in film, which is show don't tell, right? And I think in games there's a counter principle, which is play don't show. So I think doing what they've done is better than just telling us, right? Just putting the text on the screen or whatever. But it would have been better to try and have that be something that naturally emerges in through play.
I am wondering. I assume this green thing, like the splat, is going to be key to solving this level, and because I wasted up there, I got stuck in a position where I wasn't able to solve it.
Because you need to be on that top left-hand platform, right? So I think you probably have to be on that top left-hand platform, and then shoot the blue one off the top wall down onto the bottom one.
Wait, why do I need to be up there?
Because that's going to give you the height to drop into it that will help you bounce up on the other side.
Oh, I see, you reckon. Actually, I wonder if I can just...
So I'm wondering if you can bounce it off the wall.
Okay, let's...
So while you are struggling with that, shall we start having a think about the mark scheme?
Yes, let's do that.
You keep...
you keep at it, Tom. So first up is presentation. So that's information design, graphics, and audio. I can't hear the audio particularly well,
but yeah, there's some nice audio. There's a sort of whoosh sound when you go through the portal. There's a little noise when you pick up the star. There's a little end of level jingle, which is really nice.
So a good would be that there's complementary audio effects and music, and it sounds like it's there.
Yeah.
Excellent would be if the effects and music were particularly appealing. Do you think that do they really fit the game and the mechanics?
It's interesting because I actually think with this jaunty little robot, it's a happy game. I'm enjoying the music on this.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think maybe it's tricky because again, we're not marking their like composition skills or anything, and I think that like the music itself is like relatively fitting to it. Like maybe something even a bit more upbeat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could. So I think it feels like it's a bit more than good. Whether or not it quite gets up to the excellent. I mean, it sort of fits. Is there a variety of different effects going on? We got different. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so the green thing was immaterial after all.
You actually did that off the middle platform, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if that's intentional or not. So maybe we should put it halfway between the two.
Yeah.
Kind of to represent that. Graphics, kind of simple but effective, and it has a consistent look and feel to it.
Absolutely.
I feel like maybe some of the like the actual blocks of the level themselves aren't super consistent with like the happy little robot, but
yeah,
almost stuck here now. There we go.
So I would say that this is consistent and effective, which is good. But it does feel, like you said, it feels a little bit clunky. Like here, for example,
like the background, for example, as well is also
the backgrounds, but also it's things like the platform isn't neatly on the side of the wall. The exit gate doesn't quite fit. You know, the thicknesses of, I think these things are roughly consistent, but it just feels like there could be a bit more going on. So I think that probably the graphics is sitting at the kind of good level. So the interesting one is information design, because there's nothing explicitly on the screen.
Yeah.
There's lots of little indicators happening for us, right?
So one thing that I think is definitely missing is there's no indication of how much green goop I have left.
Mm-hmm.
I can only pick up a certain amount of it, and the amount that I've got is relatively key to solving the puzzle.
Yeah. There's also, I'm assuming there's 3 stars on every level, but there's also nothing to tell you how many stars you've currently collected.
That's true. I think that's less... I guess in the same way that I can remember how many stars I've collected, I could remember how much green stuff I've collected, but...
There's also nothing to indicate what level you're on, or how many levels there are. They do have some stuff, so the guns mode, that's got a little thing on there.
That's true.
Whether or not you have that ability is represented by whether or not you have the gun, which is quite nice. Then there's kind of there's the color coding of the portals. There's the positioning of the kind of reflective sort of splat, which is a bit strange. Why is the splat reflective? Anyway. So I think it's a little bit of a mixture here. They've got some nice kind of information in the game itself and the environment, but there's also
some of the extra displayed information is missing, and you forget about it once you get playing the game.
So I would say satisfactory would be most key information is shown, and I feel it's maybe at that level.
I think that's about right.
Okay, well let's have a think about meaningful play. That's mechanics, controls, and bugs. What's it like to control, Tom?
It's not too bad. So moments like that, for example, where I've got to relatively precisely bounce something off at an angle while I'm falling at 1,000,000 miles an hour, is a little bit tricky. But the actual controls themselves of like lining up where I need stuff to go and moving about is not too bad at all.
And we've got a decent set of mechanics. So we've got jumping. We've got obviously the portal gun with the 2 different types of portals. You've got the star collection. You've got the shooting the sort of the bounce splats. That's what to call them. There's a reason all that stuff going on, I think.
Yeah.
And they combine them together in interesting ways to make you solve the levels, which is good. So. Good would be a set of complementary mechanics and a reasonable set of smooth, usable controls, and it feels like they're definitely there.
I do wonder if they have a wide range.
Yeah, so excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics and intuitive controls, and I don't know whether they're there on either of those actually.
Yeah. I don't think they're quite there. I will say that I think they're edging there towards the mechanics, if only because of, why is it? I think
yeah.
I think it's to be honest, I think part of it's like the green paint tips me over there. That it's not just portals with the ball back and forth, but that green paint that reflects that you can change your surroundings, suddenly I feel like we're edging towards wide, and I really appreciate that.
So maybe we should say for the mechanics it's kind of halfway between the two, and the controls is good, right? Bugs, it looks pretty good apart from that one unfortunate clipping bug we saw.
Yes.
So good would be game is reasonably complex with infrequent minor bugs, and excellent would be reasonably complex with no obvious bugs. Is that the only thing we've seen?
I guess it's design rather than a bug as to whether, you know, if I've put the thing in the wrong place, I'm stuck forever.
You've got no way of exiting.
Yeah. And the problem is, sort of because of the nature of the game, it's difficult to know when that's happened.
Yes. Well, what I was going to suggest was halfway between good and excellent, because they've got good is infrequent minor bugs, and what we've seen is an infrequent minor bug. So you know, if there's only one, it doesn't damage the game too much. The rest of the game's very playable and seems to work maybe halfway between the two.
Yep.
So that takes us on to level design.
I appreciated their level design on this.
Yeah.
It's been fun, it's been thoughtful, like they're making us use things in unique ways. Obviously Tom is really puzzling it through. Yeah.
So a good would be a clear and coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards, and tension rises over time in a coherent pattern.
Success!
So,
sorry.
Did you just hear that? I think tension rose over time. And
we're talking about meaningful play. You're obviously meaningfully playing it.
I'm very glad that I have both of you here with me, because I would not be able to talk about this and play it at the same time.
I like that level select screen, by the way, where it shows you the number of stars you've got and kind of allows you to go in and repeat the levels and things. That's that kind of makes the most of the star collection mechanic that they've got going on. So I was going to say, for pacing for this, it does feel to me like it rises over time, because it definitely, you get more complex and they get more difficult. Excellent would be in a well-balanced, coherent and well-balanced pattern. So the difference between good is how well-balanced it is. Do you feel like it progresses at a rate that kind of that works for you as a player?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it feels that way. I mean, there's no kind of radical jumps in difficulty.
I would say there kind of are, in that I've definitely gotten stuck a few times, but I don't think they're necessarily an out of proportion jump, if that makes it. Like, there is a big jump in difficulty from that last level to this one.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just bad at the game, but
yeah,
it doesn't feel insurmountable. Like, it took me a little while. The trickiest thing, I think, like the big issue I've got with it, is the levels like this where it's just move portals and stuff. I know I will be able to solve eventually, because I can always effectively retrace my steps and keep trying different things.
Yeah.
The problem is the mechanic with the goop. As much as I like it, and as much as it gives a lot of sort of opens a lot of doors for puzzle design, it means that I feel limited in how I can get to a solution, because I've got like one shot to put this thing in a place that I think it's right, and I don't get a chance to experiment with it.
You haven't got a restart, have you?
So I do have a restart button. That's, I think, the saving grace for it.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's I don't have a way of testing out a solution before finding out if it's wrong, and I run the risk of locking myself into a dead end. Yeah.
So maybe that restart should have been a little bit easier to access. Maybe they should have had a hotkey. And then you'd feel a little bit more able to experiment, right?
Yeah, perhaps so.
Okay, so we said pacing is definitely good. Is it well balanced? It sounds like it sort of mostly is. So maybe that bit's sort of halfway between the two. goals, risks, and rewards is interesting. So there's a clear goal, which is get to the exit. And there are clearly different rewards in terms of 1, 2, or 3 stars. I suppose I'm just trying to think how the risk manifests. So I suppose there's the risk of getting stuck.
I think this actually comes back to what Tom was just saying, that he's got one shot, or there's one path, as opposed to a set of possible paths. So in this case, the previous one, he could have skipped the start, but there have been levels here where you could only get through it a specific way, and I think that's where that risk and reward is falling down a little bit in this game.
Yeah. So they've got like the 3 stars, but you follow the path and you'll pick all 3 stars up.
Yes. Versus like this one, right? So yeah, he could. Actually, I'm not even sure. Could you not get a star still get out?
That top left one you could avoid, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Although that said, I don't remember how I solved this one the last time.
You just jumped down from the middle
there,
path.
yeah. So do I have a...
So, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. I think that's the key here, right? So for example, if Tom could, and he could, I suppose, solve it now without getting that star, but really, what's the point? Like, it didn't. Yeah, there's no reason to not go get it.
So they have the mechanism in the game for doing risks and rewards, but the different levels don't necessarily use that mechanism.
There we go. Yes.
And also the risk. I mean, not this is uncommon in puzzle type games anyway, but the risk actually is fairly minimal, right? Because you're just sort of risking getting stuck, and because you don't have lives or anything, right? So the risk would become much more acute if you had a certain number of attempts or something like that to get through. But okay, so for goals, risks, and rewards. Good would be a clear and coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards, and satisfactory would be a coherent set. And then pass would be a limited set. So I think from what we've said, it's more of a coherent set. It's more at the satisfactory level.
Yeah.
They just kind of haven't utilized it well in the design, perhaps, of the levels. Okay, what about the tutorial?
I tell you what, let's go back to the start and take a look. So, very first tutorial level, just telling you the controls. Very nice, okay. Yeah. Minimal text, but effective.
Hard not to do that. I like the fact that they're in the right place. So it's like, over here use AD, over here use W, and you can't progress until you've done it. Right?
And then introducing the concept of portals, yeah.
That sort of setup for you. So that's a really nice little intro. And then the left mouse button here is good. We talked about the play don't show, but show is still better than tell. So they've got the show thing above. And then I also you start having to think a bit creatively about it there, and that helps as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing that was kind of missing, it was only white walls. And we never really get a tutorial on the green slime.
We sort of do.
Well, unless. So actually, yeah, that's true. You're saying let's think about the white walls for a minute. So is this the first level that introduced those white walls?
No, they're in the previous one as well.
Yeah.
But or rather, I should say, are there grey walls in the previous one?
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't really do that. That's just kind of implied.
So yeah. So here, for example, I can't put it on these walls behind me. Just this one.
In fairness, it's sort of actually the thing is showing you that above, isn't it? Because
that is true, actually.
It is. We just weren't observant. Okay, so I'll rescind that comment.
Well, I think you're right about the splodges.
Let's skip to that one.
The splodges, they did the same thing, right? They used the show mechanic.
Yes. Yeah.
The show method. So all right. So actually they are showing us all the stuff, and they are showing it to us. They're not telling it to us, and they introduce the controls at the right time. So I think they've done a pretty good job, really. I mean, a good would be gradual exploration of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play. And I think that's true. Excellent would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play and sometimes communicated through level design. So they don't always do it through level design because of that show stuff at the top. But are they sometimes doing it through level design? At the beginning, they kind of did with the jumping and the portals and stuff. So I think maybe halfway between the two. I think it's a pretty good attempt at a tutorial, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Seems reasonable.
I think so.
So core dynamic. Let's have a look. What did they say their core dynamic was? So they said it was spatial reasoning.
Seems
I'm
reasonable.
glad they said that. We feel our game possesses this core dynamic because the main objective is to solve how to reach the finish using mechanics provided. And crucially, they said there's no time limit for each level, and their players left to spend as much time as they like to try to solve the puzzle. So that because there's no time limit, it doesn't have that kind of race feel, or even a kind of survival feel. So I think they're spot on, actually. How do you feel about the way that the core dynamic is supported by the mechanics?
I mean, yeah, all of the mechanics are about moving through a space. Even the risks and rewards are about navigating to certain points within the space as well.
Yep.
So, being supported by the primary mechanics would be good. If it's supported by an integrated set of mechanics, that would be excellent. So how well do the mechanics work together to create effects? Yeah.
It's interesting. I actually think that, especially when it's not now, but when Tom ran out of splodge, the green reflective stuff, right? At that point, it did become an integrated set. So there was a path through the puzzle that became impossible, and that was because of the set of mechanics that were chosen.
Yeah, but there's not. So I'm trying to think whether the mechanics kind of work together in a certain way. I suppose an example of that would be because the green splodge. You're right, it does, but it doesn't do anything else, does it? I don't think. But one of the things that does would be the jumping and the portal. So jumping works in its own right, portals work in their own right. But if you jump into a portal, then that momentum is conserved, and it gives you that. That's an example of it being connected, right?
Thinking with portals.
Yeah. So I think maybe it's halfway between the two. It's kind of we got one example, maybe two examples, but maybe, and again, it might just be that they didn't have quite a rich enough set of mechanics to demonstrate it happening. But they're kind of getting there. And it all sort of feels good together. So the last one is feedback. So they said that one piece of feedback was to change the core dynamic from race to the end, because they had ideas of setting a time limit and awarding stars based on the speed, which altered the style from a relaxing problem-solving puzzle to just trying to finish quickly.
I will clarify there that I don't think their feedback was you should change the core dynamic. I think their feedback was this could go either of these two ways and you should think about how you do it.
Yeah, because they've said this would make the game less challenging and potentially less engaging. And in response to this, we changed the core down to spatial reasoning. And I think I agree with you. You could have a race to the end of this quite easily, right?
Yeah.
It would just be that you'd have to change the design. It would just have a different sort of feel to it.
Like you'd need, maybe more upbeat music that's sort of like
pushing you onwards,
pushing you onwards at like an obvious timer that's sort of showing your progress and kind of thing. Yeah. Perhaps longer, wider levels that are about sort of moving fluidly through them towards the end rather than like solving the puzzle.
But in the end, I mean, they having decided on this, I think they have effectively steered it in this direction.
That is definitely true.
they had a second one, which was differentiating the goo. So initially the goo had the same graphics as the portals, a green rectangle. And somebody pointed out it was difficult to differentiate between them, so they changed it so it appeared as a splat. And they also changed it so that goo can only be placed on grey walls and portals can only be placed on white ones. Yeah, I'm not sure if I noticed that either, actually, that the goo couldn't go on white. But I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it does make sense to make it a different thing than the portal. So I think that's less confusing. I'm not sure the splat is a particularly good or evocative
I
choice.
think it was better than having it as just another sort of green line, because otherwise it looked like you just had 3 portals to move through.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right. So I think they have responded. The first one though, they've not quite understood the feedback. So satisfactory would be feedback was addressed and changes have been somewhat successful. And good would be that the feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful. Yeah. So I think they kind of. I'm wondering basically whether they've hit the good, whether the feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful. The excellent would be the feedback has been interpreted, and I'm not quite sure they're there. It's kind of, particularly since they didn't quite understand. But I think it probably counts as being at the good level.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all in all, I think a nice little puzzle game that kind of that works really nicely.
I agree.
Good. All right. Shall we move on to our next game?
Yeah, let's.
Right. So, what have we got here?
So this is Prison Escape. So we've got some nice slow jazz in the background. We've got a very thematic title screen, very polished looking.
Yeah, I like it. Is that title screen going to turn into the game?
More or less, but
just about. Yeah. Okay.
So we've got WASD
all around us, so that's quite nice. And given that the game's called Prison Escape.
The guy has dropped his keys. This is my chance.
Okay.
Okay, I just pressed E a lot there, and then something happened. Oh, I can shut myself back in now. Good time. Well, time to get a good night's sleep. Okay.
You need to go to the toilet before you leave. Now I'm really sounding like a parent.
Yeah.
So,
for any trip, come on, be prepared.
So we've got a blue gate. We've got a cell with a green lock, and we've got.
What colour was your lock?
I think it was just grey. Can I let any of these people out with the keys, or do they have...
That one's easy lighting up.
I suspect I need a different key for that.
Yeah, not all together obvious.
Go push E.
So I was hanging about in my cell until the guard had come back on his patrol again because I didn't want to get caught. But it seems like he's gone for good.
Yes, cute little graphics.
Oh, there's your.
There he is. So he won't move from the exit. Okay. Need to lure him away.
Right.
So now go release people to lure him away. Excellent.
No, I press X to whistle. Okay, a little sort of built-in sort of tutorial video. Again, perhaps a bit of it's showing, don't telling, but it's not just letting us try this.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Dun
dun dun dun dun.
All right. Nice. Is there anything on the guard that tells us? Is there a sort of timer or something? Cool.
I don't know. There's this. So a big thing, a big UI thing in the top right that says timer, but appears blank and somewhat unused.
Yes. I'm hoping that will get introduced.
What's it say? You should.
This should come in handy. Okay, again, little tutorial. So Q and X and E and.
Yeah. How you getting on remembering all the keys?
Well, let's try it out and see. So, can't seem to hear me. Oh, So I can't whistle for this one because this one's wearing headphones.
Ah.
So I was going to sort of throw it, and there's, I assume, a camera up there. I am assuming this is a vision cone for a camera that I need to get in here to turn off.
Oh, okay. We'll try going. What happens if you go into it? Because they haven't told us that.
That's true. We got caught.
You were right.
I have lost the keys from my inventory. I hope I don't need them again. I suspect I don't. I think that was just the key to my cell, not any of the other puzzles.
And you can pick up the log.
Okay, so I've equipped it. And then
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, phone company.
So turn that off. There's the timer.
Okay.
I decided to only turn it off for 6 seconds, not any longer than that. I'm a sporting escaped prisoner.
Oh.
Wait, where did you go?
I think this is a little cutscene type thing.
It's trying to
show you what the layout is. Got it.
The land.
I haven't remembered any of this, I'll be honest.
No memory.
Yeah. It's cute. I kind of, the little cones of light are very effective. And I know that's a fairly
standard,
way of doing this,
but yeah, very
it works
effective.
well.
Okay, so I guess. So on the one hand, I really liked that little cutscene. It was nice, sort of showcasing the whole level. But equally, like I say, I haven't been able to hold any of that in my memory, and I feel like now I'm just about to explore it all anyway.
Yeah.
So I've turned off something.
I think that kind of thing perhaps works more effectively as an actual mechanic. So you get to the security terminal and use it to look at level.
Yeah.
And you can go back and do it again if you want to.
This camera has a very long...
And then if the state changes...
Another rock. Another set of rooms.
Okay.
Is there anything in this one, or is this just interesting? Anyway, while I'm pondering over what on earth I'm meant to be doing...
Yes, we should be...
Let's do it. So, let's think about the presentation first then. So, information design, graphics, and audio. I like the music.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all the little beeps and bops, like the gate opening, they're all very effective and I think appealing. I feel immersed.
Yeah, like
and
this.
And the graphics too, right?
I feel like parts of the audio maybe could, like for example, when I'm being chased by a guard, like, again, switch the music to be a bit more sort of upbeat. The sort of, what is it, like Metal Gear Solid sort of dun 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 dun, like this.
Yeah, just to note
a little bit more thematic, but I do like the sort of quiet, sneaky jazz. That kind of ties in really nicely.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So this...
That says E. I bet you could open that.
I don't know how, though.
But none of the others have.
Yeah.
Let's let a friend out, because then they can maybe get the guards.
But that's the thing, I can't.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a bit strange. So, alright, so, I mean, thinking about graphics and audio, graphics, again, I really like the graphics, actually. I think they're really clean, they're very consistent, all works really well. Maybe the HUD is a bit blocky compared to the...
It does cover up quite a bit of the screen.
But it's not terrible, and it still broadly fits. Even things like the text, right? Like the text that comes up, it's quite nice.
Yep.
It fits the style.
And it does play this again, so even though I've already played the game and know... to be fair, that...
So...
sorry, just one thing about the audio. It does change. I hadn't noticed this the first time through. Here, quiet jazz. When I'm sneaking up behind the guard...
Yes.
Oh, excellent. That's wonderful.
Alright, well let's have a look at this then. So good would be consistent and effective graphics and complementary audio effects and music, and I think it's definitely there. Excellent would be effective and appealing graphics and complementary and appealing effects and music. And think it's probably there.
Yeah, easily.
Prizeworthy would be thematically resonant graphics and sophisticated effects and music.
You know what? I'd say the audio.
To be honest, the fact that the audio is changing based on sneaking up behind the guard, like, I feel like just that one is edging up a little bit into the prizeworthy.
Agreed.
The sophisticated.
Yeah, I do.
And thematically resonant graphics. I wouldn't necessarily say that. But
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of saying the graphics and audio are excellent. Audio probably maybe nudging up towards the prizeworthy space. I think that's fair. What about the information design?
So
timer inventory. I think the timer box annoys me because there's nothing in it, and for the longest time we thought it was a bug until Tom started running away.
Yeah, it doesn't appear for quite a long time as well, doesn't it? So
yes,
we're quite long into the game. Yeah, I agree with you.
it certainly doesn't need to be there the whole time. Only perhaps when I've turned this off.
Exactly.
But equally, the inventory takes up a lot of space for something that's kind of rarely used.
Yeah. So it works, right? And it kind of all the information you need is there. The cones of light, that's obviously part of the the sight cones. That's fairly clear. I like the way that they've for graphical reasons they've got a gradient on that light cone.
Yeah.
But the end of it is still fairly sharp, so it's still quite clear to see when you're in it and when you're not. I think that's good.
Yeah, and even that little sort of cutscene showing off where the level is.
Yeah.
Like
and the interactions that pop up, like the ease that pop up on interactive things. That one sort of one that we think was misleading at the beginning. But that's quite nice. Yeah, and you're right. And the cutscene, the camera directing you towards the room, they've done a good job actually. It's just those HUD elements are a bit weird. So a good would be all key information is shown, and excellent would be all key information is shown clearly. And prizeworthy would be novel yet clear ways of showing key information. And I kind of feel like their use of the kind of little previews and things is nudging them up a little bit towards prizeworthy, but the HUD elements are nudging them down a little bit towards good. So I would maybe think excellent as a.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, we're nitpicking, right? These are all good. These are all really good categories they're in, right?
Yes.
Another good definition. All right, let's think about the play, meaningful play. So that's mechanics and controls and bugs. So, what are the controls like?
Movement, absolutely fine. Like very smooth, fluid. What else have we got? Throwing the rock, whistling. I guess
a lot of keys going on for independent.
Yeah.
A lot of what am I trying to say? A lot of kind of a key is tied to very specific mechanics, right? So every time they introduce one, you seem to introduce a new key.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we'll mention a bit more when we talk about the level design, the pacing, I guess. But a lot of these mechanics only really seem to be used once. Like, this is the only time I need to whistle, and that is the only time I need to use the rock.
And then that's therefore why you're forgetting, right? Because you're not repeating them. So I think that's okay.
Well, it's more just
good would be a reasonable set of smooth and usable controls, and a satisfactory would be a reasonable set of usable controls. And maybe because of that, it's a little bit more towards the satisfactory.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Because you have to think.
It's definitely not intuitive.
Okay, what about mechanics? What mechanics we got going on?
So we have moving, interacting with various items, We have the guards and the cameras that both have view cones. We have
got
whistling to
whistling,
distract things. We have
rock.
throwing rocks to distract
We've
them.
got quite a lot of stuff, basically. So I think there's a wide set of mechanics. Are they complementary?
So the mechanics they've got all work together to form the building blocks of puzzles. I feel again that, so for example here, I don't have to whistle, I don't have to throw a rock, I can literally just walk straight past them and use this door instead. So I feel like the mechanics they've got, are all complementary, but they haven't maybe utilised all of them.
It's the same thing again, isn't it? They're kind of the level design doesn't
What's
put
that on
together.
the floor? Is that a dead camera? Sorry.
No, that's a live camera that I've just disabled, so there it turns back on now.
So good would be a set of complementary mechanics. Excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics. And satisfactory would be a set of consistent mechanics. And I think what we've got is a wide set of consistent mechanics. It's kind of like a mix of satisfactory and excellent. So I would put them at the good level. As a result of that. Bub, have you noticed anything?
I haven't noticed any that I can think of. So I mean, there I sort of bumped straight into him, even if I wasn't in his vision cone.
So this now comes down to complexity. With no obvious bugs, if it's reasonably complex, it's an excellent. I think it is reasonably complex.
Yeah.
Prizeworthy would be gamers of higher complexity. So I don't think it's up there. So I think kind of again excellent.
See if we could sneak under it.
All right. Let's talk about level design because we kind of touched on that a few times already. So this is goals, risks, and rewards, and pacing. What do we think?
The goal is somewhat, well, the overarching goal is escape the prison. Fine, cool.
Yeah.
And I guess the sort of moment-to-moment goal is pass this obstacle, whether it's the camera, the guard, the whatever that's directly in your way. It's a relatively linear path, but that's fine, and it keeps the goal clear. In terms of risk versus reward, though,
do you have any alternative paths? Are there?
Well, I mean, I guess I have the option of distract that guard or ignore them totally and walk around it, but I don't know if that's...
But you don't have the... Oh, you could whistle, I guess. You don't need something to whistle. So yeah, you could distract.
Yeah, so quite a few people have been caught out a little bit by this. It's about your agency, right? So whenever you have a kind of a game with these kinds of puzzles, are there multiple ways to solve the puzzles where some ways are better than others, right? In different ways.
So I guess
I think the problem here is I don't think there is.
Yeah, we have like the rock versus the whistle versus the just run straight past everyone. And none of them are...
But there's not really a reason for that choice.
Yeah, exactly. Like certainly the whistling and the rock are like identical effectively.
Yeah. So I wonder, for example, how would you change this? So an easy way of doing it would be to do something like that you have some kind of score based on I don't know, how many times you had to distract the guards, right? Or how much of a how sneakily you can get out, right?
Yeah, or you could do something based on, I like how sneakily you can get out, or maybe you just have different paths, that there's one where you have to do lots of distractions and movements, because some people like to do that, and one where it's really convoluted and it's a huge spatial reason you have to explore really hard to get to the...
So you can effectively choose the type of solution that suits you.
Exactly.
So without that, I think the goals, risks, and rewards is a bit problematic. Although I think that, as Tom said, the goals are pretty clear. So I mean, this just comes down to whether they're a coherent set, whether they're clear and coherent. So I think what we've got clear goals. Although there's a relatively limited set of goals, right? It's just get past the guards, and then the risk rewards is a bit limited, right? So a pass would be a limited set of goals, risks, and rewards. And I wonder whether we're kind of there. There are kind of elements which are probably a little bit higher than that, and some elements which are a bit lower than that even. But pass level feels about right.
Yep.
And pacing. So you mentioned this already, Tom. You kind of got. So there's two questions here. One is about whether it builds as you go through, and I think we can argue that it doesn't really do that. But the other one is about the actual level of difficulty and whether that rises over time and whether you feel like the challenge goes up.
And it does to an extent. So first we have to get past one guard, then we have to get past a guard and a camera, then we get that slightly more open room that is, like slightly generously, the culmination of all the mechanics we've learned so far. It's not an especially complex use of all of the mechanics we've used so far, but it is some ascendant pacing.
Yeah, I think again, so much of this comes down to level design. Like all the kind of the building blocks of this are here, right?
Yeah.
It's just they're a little bit too loosely put together. The game could be sort of tighter in that way. So satisfactory would be tension clearly rises over time. Pass would be tension somewhat rises over time. I'm wondering whether it's at the pass level or maybe between the two.
Yeah, perhaps between the two.
Yeah, good would be kind of it rises over time in a coherent pattern. I don't think it's there. So I think it's, yeah, we put it between the two of those. And then the tutorial. So we got the keys popped up as we went.
Yeah, it talks to us, and then we have the little cutscenes that kind of do the play-by.
It's quite nice actually the way in which they lay this out. I don't think we've been puzzled or stuck.
Yeah.
Only when they've given us opportunities that we didn't understand, like what do we do with this key on these extra cell doors, for example.
Yeah. I think in a way a lot of it is nicely integrated with the play in that they put a guard there that you can only distract by throwing a rock.
Yeah.
It almost breaks the flow a bit to have that cutscene pop up, especially on repeat playing. It's like, okay, I know how to do this. I want to skip this now, kind of thing. But it is an inventive approach to showing that.
So a good would be gradual exploration of gameplay and controls, fully aligned with play, and that feels right. Excellent builds on that. And says fully aligned with play and sometimes communicated through level design. So what the extent do we think that you're actually being taught this through the design of the levels? So you've definitely got the one where the guard's in the way, you have to distract the guard. But again, the problem is that doesn't happen again.
No, there is. I actually think there's one the guard's in the way, and there's the other one where the camera's in the way. And you can't get past that until you learn how to do the stone and then go into the control room.
So the camera, certainly. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there are two. So
after I've distracted, one with the whistle and one with the rock, I never have to use either of those two again. I can get by without doing either.
And so that's the problem. They are teaching you through level design, but then they're not using what you've learned.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in effect...
That's ironically the issue. The tutorial's actually really good, but it's not teaching you something valuable because they don't go on to use it.
Yeah. So excellent would be, as I said, gradual explanation of gaming controls, fully aligned with play, and sometimes communicated through level design.
I think we should also say at this point, it is a small prototype, but they already have done all of the hard work. They have those mechanical building blocks. It wouldn't take a huge amount of extra effort to then.
It's the last room, isn't it? The last level needs to bring it all together.
Yeah.
A bit more effectively than it currently does, I think. So all right. I mean, so what I'm thinking is it feels like it's at least a good, fully aligned with play. And then the question of being communicated through level design is there are instances of it being communicated through level design, but the problem is that it's purposeless, right? It feels like it's a one-off thing. So, but I still think they've made the effort of communicating it through the design, right?
I agree with that, yeah.
So I think maybe in this case we should say, look, you know, we'll give them the excellent, and just make a note that having done this, it would have been good to then integrate them so you can actually apply what you've learned. Core dynamic. So they said their game is a chase and evade core dynamic. And the guards will chase down the player if they walk into their line of sight, and you must evade detection. And then they say it contains puzzle elements as well, as you have to advance to the next section, observing the environment and how to advance this part. So that's an interesting question. So,
so the
do you think this is chase and evade, or do you think it's more of a...
I thought it was a puzzle.
But, so here's the thing. I'd agree that it's chase and evade. It has those elements, but puzzle isn't really a core dynamic, right? It's
Yeah, that's true.
It's
That's true.
something that is built out of the core dynamic.
Yeah.
Also,
So they said puzzle elements, but I suppose I read that as spatial reasoning.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
read it as spatial reasoning too, exactly.
and that's like
But,
spatial reasoning is a common building block of puzzles. But equally, like knowing when to distract the right guard and thing, that's like puzzle elements. I think, again, it's like going back to their last level isn't perhaps as complex as it could be to show off all their mechanics. There's not a huge amount of puzzling to do. I don't have to sit and think about what I'm going to do next. It's just, it is more the moment to moment of, oh, I've got to evade this guard before he turns around kind of thing.
Yeah. I have to say I'm a bit torn on this one. There's definitely a chase and evade element. I mean, more evade than anything else, right? There's not an awful lot of chase. But at the same time, it feels, yeah. I suppose you're right. It isn't really spatial reasoning. It's trying to alter the behavior of the elements within the game, so you can evade. So look, I mean, a core dynamic of good would be a clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanics, and satisfactory would be a clear core dynamic that is partially supported by the mechanics. So are there ways that you could think that they might have emphasized the chase and evade dynamic?
So I think guards might be a little too dumb in this, for chase and evade, or too unpopulated, or too infrequent.
Yeah, I think you've hit on it. Actually, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, it's easy for us to say because we're not playing it, but it doesn't feel like it's enormously challenging.
Yes.
And
Which is why
therefore,
I thought it was a spatial reasoning. Like, you have to figure out how to kind of spatially get yourself around these guards, as opposed to run away and
it's less about your ability to execute that, right?
yes.
See, playing it, I kind of feel the opposite. Like, there doesn't seem to be too much that I have to sit and puzzle over and go, okay, but if I turn this camera off, then I can make it to this thing. Like, that just seems to happen relatively sort of incidentally. Like,
Yeah.
Again, as we said a bunch, there isn't perhaps enough challenge in it in total to really emphasize that. But the last part of the very last part of the game, where it's like there are two guards in front of the final exit, and navigating my way around those is the trickiest bit. Again, I'm kind of putting one hand behind my back to do it though, because I'm refusing to use the whistle. If I did that, then suddenly it becomes a lot easier, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So again, I think this is quite a few times you said that the designers let it down, rather than the actual engine.
Yeah.
So in this case, you're right. So the dynamic they're going for, the mechanics do all support that dynamic, right? And the levels in fairness have you execute that, but the level of challenge is quite low for the sort of challenge you'd expect from that dynamic, right? So look, a good would be a clear core dynamic that's supported by the primary mechanics. An excellent would be supported by an integrated set of mechanics. I certainly don't think they're integrated.
No.
Yeah, I think we're at least at a good though. To me, as playing it, I say the dynamic is quite. To me, it feels quite clearly chase and evade.
Quite clear. Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, their feedback. So they said their initial idea was letting the player fight back with weapons, but in the feedback it was made clear this would add a destruction dynamic which would conflict with the chase and evade dynamic. So they took them out and made sure the player had various ways of evading the guards instead of killing them. I think their advice was good, and I think it's worked.
Yeah, I think certainly if you had the option to fight the guards, that would complicate the core dynamic even more.
Yeah. Because what they actually ought to be doing is putting more obstacles in your way that you had to use your tools to solve. But that's a different item of feedback, right? So I think they have responded. That is the only thing they've said, but it feels like it's a key thing. So satisfactory would be feedback was addressed and changes have been somewhat successful. Good would be feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful. So I suppose it depends on whether you feel they've done enough to. So what they haven't done is they haven't thought about what they might do instead to emphasize the chase and evade dynamic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like they sort of like gloss over it and say, well, we added things like we took away the things that made it not chase and evade, and we added some things that did, but they haven't necessarily talked about why the things they've added help that.
Yeah. So I think it's between the two. I think that they've kind of the things they've done have worked, but there were other things they should have done as a result of that advice that they haven't done.
Or even just more articulate.
Yeah, so maybe half.
Also, articulating clearly why why adding the whistle and the rock throw as opposed to a machete has made it more.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we put it halfway between the two.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. So a nice game that kind of suffers, I think, from sort of a little bit of too much loose level design. But like I said, all the building blocks are there, and it looks great, and it sounds great, and
sounds amazing.
And some really nice bits to it. Right. Okay. I think that's our last game for this video. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Cool. See you then.